1 second here. Welcome. Thank you all for being here. I get this figured out too. There we go. Welcome to our Tangled Roots Storytelling Night. If you aren't familiar with the Art House, we're a 501c3 arts organization that tries to make sure that people and artists have access to the arts. So we're into arts advocacy, equity, education. I'm going to turn off the music really quick. Hold it though. Go ahead and take this off. There we go. As I was saying, we're an arts advocacy organization. We do about 4 major exhibitions a year that have a social justice theme. So the one you're sitting in right now, All the Art of the Wall, is from 45 different artists. Some of those artists are in the audience tonight. 45 artists, all from different cultural backgrounds. Again, like I said, we call it our Tangled Roots exhibition. This event tonight is to make space for artists, for performing artists who don't paint or draw or sculpt, and who express themselves in other creative ways. Yeah. So again, thank you. Oh, I keep forgetting that part. I'm Wolf Brack. I'm the operations manager. Yeah. I'm also going to MC this evening, so I'll be introducing each speaker as they come up. The point of this is basically for different performers, actors, writers, poets, playwrights to just express and discuss how they engage with their own cultures while living in the U.S. and abroad, and what that means to them. So I'm going to go ahead and just introduce the first person, if she's ready. So our first speaker is E Lewis. E is a textile and storytelling artist whose work depicts her creative ancestors' journey from Africa to America. Her impressions include African prints, paper from Thailand, silk, cotton, and canvas. Her abstracts, two-dimensional designs, quilts, and textile panels evoke untold stories and life-changing memories. She has produced, curated, and installed textiles in art galleries, museums, gift shops, and boutiques within the Kansas City area, and virtually in St. Louis and Denver, Colorado. E's textiles are obtained by local, regional, and out-of-state collectors. Her textiles are on display within institutions and organizations. Her first and sixth solo exhibition was on display at the Black Archives of Mid-America, one of Kansas City's cultural landmarks. Her artwork is part of the Smithsonian Race exhibition in collaboration with the museum at Prairie Fire. These textiles depict Black history through art. E. Lewis.
May I obtain permission from an elder to speak?
Permission granted.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is B Wells Burnett. I was born in 1862 in Holly Springs, Mississippi. I am the oldest of 9 siblings. My father was a community leader, despite of being a free slave and the dangers that it acquired. My mother attended school with me to assist her with reading, writing, and arithmetic. At a young age, my parents would have me to sit and read the newspaper to them, not realizing they were preparing me to be the princess of the press. One day, yellow fever had stricken the community, and at the time I was at my grandparents' house. And I got word that it had killed my parents and my younger sibling. My family decided they were gonna separate us. Well, I knew my mother would turn over in her grave if she had found out we were separated like slaves. So I decided to age myself. Still look good, huh? I decided to age myself to take another position so I can work and take care of my siblings. I took a job to be a teacher at a school. And I also was a columnist as well, so I would write because I like writing stories and issues that are taking place. Well, I noticed at the segregated school that the white children had everything they needed. Nice desks, books, chairs, paper, pencils. But the colored children had raggedy books that didn't have colors, chairs that were falling apart, barely had a pencil to even write their name. So I decided to write about it in the column. These are the situations that are taking place at the segregated school. The colored children do not have all the things that they need to assist them with developing and growing, period. Well, the school had found out that I was writing these articles. You see, because my name was Lola, somebody must have told on me. And they asked me to step down. So I stepped down. But as I was contemplating, I'm thinking, I'm amazed how this action takes so young an age to belittle a colored child. As I was getting on the train, heading back to Tennessee, I sat in the ladies section, of course. Pullman porter comes through and he asks me for my ticket. I handed him my ticket. He hands it back. And he states, "Excuse me, ma'am, but I'm going to ask you to go to the back of the train." "Excuse me, sir, but I'd rather sit here in the coach with the rest of the ladies. Ain't I a woman?" Short, John, or true. As I handed him my ticket, of course, he handed back. Next thing you know, he takes his hand and he puts it on my shoulder. He touches me to pull me out of my seat. Did he just touch me? So I decided as a lady I was going to take my teeth and fasten it to the back of his hand. Next thing I know, another Pullman porter comes through. And they're wrestling and they're tugging me and they're putting me off the train. Well, I was embarrassed and I was also appalled. How could you do this to a lady? Of course, all the whites were cheering and roaring them on. So I decided to take matters into my own hands. I decided I was going to sue the railroad. You see, my money is green enough to buy me a ticket. But you mean to tell me my skin color, because my canvas is colored in brown, I cannot sit in a seat of choice? Selfish. I sued the railroad. I hired a colored lawyer, but they paid him off. You know how that goes. So then I hired a white lawyer. I won $500. Don't cheer too loud. The Tennessee Supreme Court overruled my judgment, and I only won $300. Selfish. So again, back to the college. And I want to warn the community, this is the situation that's taking place. I bought a ticket, green money, but because my canvas is colored in brown, they are not letting me sit in the seat of choice, period. I decided to become an investigator journalist. Best part of my life. People's Store. If anybody don't know what a People's Store is, a People's Store was next door to the white grocery store. You see, at the People's Store, that's where the colored people can buy the things they need, like brown sugar, brown bread. Well, the white store owners were mad because the People's Store was right next to it. One day, two little white boys and two little black boys outside playing marbles. Click, clack, The little white boys were losing, so they got mad at the little white boys. But Tommy and his two business partners came outside and said, "Hey, let's stop this." To keep a long story short, Tommy and his business partners were killed. They were lynched. They were left for dead. And I said, well, let me figure out why is this happening. So as I'm doing my investigation, they're telling me that lynching is only for colored criminals. Better yet, Negro criminals. Well, Tommy and them wasn't criminals. They owned their own store. They had a family. How are you going to kill two businessmen Oh, because they were Negroes. So I decided to take matters in my hand again. This is where I become a crusader. I went overseas, and I determined I'm going to tell them overseas what's going on down south. You see, the Negroes that are picking your cotton, they're also killing them as well. Well, of course, down south got word that I was doing it. It says, oh, we would never do that to the Negroes down here. She don't know what she's talking about. You lynched 3,000 of them, and you cheered and roared them on, and I don't know what I'm talking about? As I was making my way back to Memphis, please take note, they had burnt down my printing place. This was their way of running me out of town. They did it. I made my way to New York, Chicago, D.C., and I'm determined I'm going to work as hard as I can to spread the word. Well, while I'm up in New York, please take note, this is where I encountered with W.E.B. Du Bois and Frederick Douglass. Well, I thought the brothers was going to help me out. But they informed me that women of color are supposed to be seen, not heard. So I was no longer part of the NAACP. So I decided I'll start the Alpha. I'll start the women's group. I'll teach ladies how to look cute and put on pearls, you know. So the group grew stronger. I taught the women how to vote. I taught the women how to do their research. I taught them medical issues, everything they needed to empower them. This is when the women's suffrage starts to come about. Of course, it's time for the parade, the women's suffrage parade, of course. And Miss Alice Paul greets me. Alice Paul says, oh, Ida, we're so glad you're here. I'm thankful. We couldn't have done this without you and those other colored women at all. Well, Alice, no problem. The more the merrier, the women we come together, the fighter we are, the stronger we'll become as women. She states, Ida, I love that you came, but I'm gonna have to ask you and those colored women to stay in the back. I said, no problem, Alice, no problem at all. We'll be fine. I never told the Alpha group what she said. I didn't even go back there. I had them stay back there anyway because I already knew it was going to take place. So what did I do? I gently put myself over to the side and I just waited till the parade started. And all I could hear was, where's Ida? Have you seen Ida? Where did she go? Has anybody seen Ida? Have you seen Ida? Have you seen Ida? Where's Ida? She must be somewhere writing. I bet she's somewhere writing. See, I was like that blackbird in the tree waiting for the worm to come up so I can catch him, fly back out. You see, I waited patiently until I saw the first white woman take her step in the parade. I went, I locked arms with the rest of those white women, and I made sure my left foot followed my right foot. You see, because that way, if I'm locked in arms with them at the front of the parade, they won't pull me from the parade because they have to pull the white women out the parade too. See, now they're writing about me. Now they're talking about me. You see, less fight is more flight over you. Quote unquote, E Wells Burnett. I'd rather fight like a dog than die like a rat in the street. The title of my exhibit is Ida's Journey to Save Colored Men in America. Black represents death. Red and the cream represents the tree and the rope he does not want to be hung by. And the red represents his lifeline seeping into the soil. I'm saying.
Our next segment involves two people, one playwright, one an actress. I'll start with playwright. Younis. Younis was born in Mosul, Iraq, and immigrated to the United States as a child in 1982. She's an independent journalist and commentator and has been widely published on various magazines and websites. Her work has been featured in an anthology about the lives of Muslim women titled Living Islam Out Loud. And she is the co-author of several children's books spotlighting characters of different faith minorities. Inaz serves on the Overland Park Friends of the Arts Advisory Board and is co-host of The Religionist, a podcast that will premiere this fall, featuring personal conversations about religious experience and comparative religious explorations. She is an alumnus of the American Muslim Civic Leadership Initiative, housed at the University of Southern California, and currently serves on the board of the Kansas City Public Theater, which provides access to the arts through year-round theater Turn the Page. Entertainment free of charge to the public. She lives in Overland Park, Kansas with her husband, children, and two adorable cats, Matisse and Stony. Inaz, would you like to introduce Vanessa?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'd like to introduce Vanessa Davis. Vanessa Davis is a Kansas City native. She attended Ada in Los Angeles, where she spent a decade working in commercial and film. Back in KC, she prefers being on stage. Previous works include Bastard and Love Song at the Living Room, The Normal Heart at Off Center, and The Ghosts of Loved Bravo, Project Dawn, and Sweat at the Unicorn Theater, with one musical, In the Heights, at MTH. Davis teaches high school theater, hosts karaoke, and bounces between her 2-year-old son and 15-year-old daughter. And tonight, Vanessa will be portraying a Muslim woman of Middle Eastern descent.
George Bernard Shaw, you know, the playwright, said that alcohol was the anesthetic by which we endure the operation of life. When COVID hit, it became the anesthesia of choice for my 83-year-old neighbor, Margaret. She lived in the apartment across from mine. I used to go over there every day with my obscenely large cup of coffee. It was more like a bowl than a cup. American size. Pandemic size, really. Margie and I, we would sit out on the balcony and she'd just talk my ear off about the war. Some war. One of the wars. I can't remember which. There have been so many. Poor Margaret could not leave the house, not because of her old age, but on account of the lockdown. She used to go to the Irish pub across the street every single day. I mean day, as in late morning, early afternoon. She'd have just one beer. She called it her spoon of sugar. Not much of a drinker back then. She went for the company. Sadly, when the pandemic hit, she took to drinking alone. And a lot. See, I could not partake in the celebratory drinking. That's what she called it. I am Muslim, and, well, we don't drink. It's prohibited. But Margaret wouldn't buy my noble excuses. Mormons aren't supposed to drink coffee either, but here you are, chugging away at a pot full of caffeine every day. True to me. I am Muslim, not Mormon, Margaret. I tried to explain, but it did make me think, how could anybody survive this pandemic without coffee? In the hierarchy of sins, I lost to the Mormons, and Margaret lost to me. I had no problem with Margaret's drinking. It seemed like the thing to do, considering the circumstances. But I think that Margaret felt judged. What the hell is wrong with you Mormons? I am Muslim, not Mormon, I would say for the millionth time. Muslim, Mormon, Mexican, who gives a flying fig? We're all just human, and in a crisis like this, we are called to be nothing but human. God. Well, if you can hold on to God with a thought in times like this, just a thought, well, then you are good to go. So just let go for Christ's sake. This was her way of convincing me that I ought to start drinking. Like living a little. Because life is hard, and during hard times, one ought to be fallible. But I knew that if I just took one sip, it wouldn't be good. There are no saints during times of tribulations, she say. Only haters acting out in the guise of virtue. But the hardship wasn't just the pandemic. Margaret had just lost her only son to cancer, and I had just lost my husband and my job. My husband's a hijabi Instagram influencer, and my job to COVID. The hardship was real. There is no sin in coping, she would say. I knew that if I just took one sip, it would be all downhill from there. That proverbial red line, once crossed, well, there was no going back. I tried to explain this to Margaret. I tried to tell her that red lines are different for everyone. One man's sin is another man's salvation. But Margaret wouldn't buy it. Oh, just stop with all your philosophical masturbation and be fucking human for once. Bite into the forbidden fruit. There is no such thing as free will without at least one act of defiance. Don't you Mormons know about Adam and Eve? When the religious arguments didn't work, I just kept philosophizing. Listen, Marge, I would say, I'm an Arab. I was born intoxicated. I have 1,400 years of wine flowing through my veins. When Arabs drink, they do it to get sober. And I don't want to be sober right now. I am saving all my drinking for better times. I'll be dead by then, she'd say. And that was not funny. Yeah, those were hard times. The pandemic, the loss of income, broken relationships, the loss of life. It was hard. But it was also surreal in a good way. It was a moment in history when we had to listen. The world was forced to interrogate itself the way me and Margie interrogated each other. What had we done to the earth, to each other? The hate, the violence. We forgot what it meant to be human, to be strong enough to admit how weak we are. My only regret was in standing my ground. Integrity can ruin your life. I read that once in a book. Now I get it. I mean, what would have been the harm? I could have done it, or at least faked it. I think God would have approved of my loving gesture, my show of humanity. Margie would drink every day and feel bad. And there I was on some sort of moral high ground. I think I made her feel bad. Now I feel bad for not being bad. And have enough perspective. Back then I was young and stupid. Too stupid to act stupid, which would have been a smart thing to do, considering the circumstances. Context is everything. I took myself way too seriously. It's the only thing that I had to keep from disintegrating. Margie had the wisdom of age to help her cope. No sin in coping. It's been 10 years and a lot has changed. I'm remarried, and I have a daughter, Mariam Margaret. I am happy, and I cope constructively through prayer and reading and creative aspirations. Oh, whoop, hold on. Look what I got. I know, right? This is just gonna be between you and me. Okay, we are finally going to have a proper toast. The stuff is supposed to be the best, and that's what the sales lady told me at the liquor store. It's called Pino Tagujiao, something like that. Margie, you were right. Sacrificing one's life just to make a point is to miss the point altogether. Happy anniversary. Oh, this tastes like shit. Oh, it must be spoiled. That lady sold me old wine? Or maybe this is what alcohol actually tastes like? Oh my God, how in the world can anybody do this? I don't get it. Well, at least I did it. I bit into the forbidden fruit. Morality has no meaning without choice, and there can be no choice without at least one act of defiance. Right? My one act of defiance. And I wanted to do it with you. Ooh. Oh, then I know who that is. Hey, Margie. How you feeling? Yep, I'm on my way. Yeah, I'm just visiting Best Booze. Yeah, you remember my cat, Best Booze? Yeah, I could have never survived that pandemic without him. Yeah, it's our 10th anniversary. Oh, thank you. I knew you would understand. Hey, Margie. I was thinking, why don't we have that drink? A drink. You know a drink? Okay. Okay. You're right. I better not. Nope. You're right. You're always right. I just wanted you to know that I'm here for you. I'll see you soon.
Our next speaker is an artist who showed with us maybe, what was that, 2-3 years ago? I don't know if I ever told you, but you do spectacular drawings. Your architectural work makes my heart stop. So I was really glad to see you submit for the show that's up now. Michael Silvestre is next. He's going to introduce himself. Ready?
Hello everyone, my name is Michael Silvestre. I live in Overland Park, Kansas. I'm a student at Johnson County Community College and the Amazon Warehouse Associate in Bonner Spring. Born and raised in Portland, Oregon, my specialty is graphic pencil, drawing, and painting. How have your cultural identities and histories influenced your lived experience in the U.S. and elsewhere? Being Filipino mixed and only spoke English at home was confusing growing up. My dad, who only speak Tagalog, would say to me and my sibling, or who could speak Tagalog, would say to me and my sibling, "You're in America, just speak English." Even though we had some traditional Filipino lifestyle at home, when I'm out with my family in public, I have always thought that when people give us snarky looks or a frustrated sigh, I just thought they were just having a bad day. Once I realized people act that way because of our identity, it changed my perspective that not everyone appreciates our presence. In late grade school, I realized that I am gay and kept it a secret until I was 19. In my early youth, I thought being honest with myself would put me in great danger, especially living in a lower income community with high crimes and murder. So I created a shell to have like two personalities. One where I could just be my genuine self when I'm at home. Second is when I'm out in school or in public, where it's like I have to put on a mask, like I have to be someone different, I have to be straight, I have to be someone that I won't cause a conflict. And in my community, seeing people that identify themselves as gay, and this was back in the mid-90s, I would see them get beat up or have like a bloody face, and I didn't want to be that person. I wanted to be someone that I could be safe, so I had to have two different personalities. In my Buddhist practice, above my painting is the abstract lotus. I practice Nichiren Buddhism, Soka Gakkai, Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. This helped me ground the negativity that I have for myself, and it helped me reveal a lot of who I am personally and break down the outer barrier. I'd like to share some of his quotes from my Buddhist mentor, Daisaku Ikeda. One's happiness or unhappiness is not determined by the environment or by others. Everything depends on one's own strong resolve. You, yourself, possess full power over everything in your life. With this conviction, live vibrantly. Live in a way that is full of life for yourself, for your loved ones, for your friends. People who do so will find the courage to transform suffering into hopes. Not only that, but they will be able to light the lamp of hope in the hearts of many others as well. So instead of just like, hiding myself, it's like, people will have a bad day. People will be frustrated that because I'm a Filipino or because I'm gay. Like, whatever, just be my shining self. What stories and histories inform the lens through which you and the community you belong to see in the world? I noticed within the Filipino community, everyone is like family no matter what identity you are. In my Buddhist community and faith, Buddhism is about taking action. Rather than waiting for something to change, Buddhists create a vision for what they want to see happen and take action. The courage to imagine new realities comes from tapping into our Buddhability. And just like Tina Turner chanting Nam-myoho Renge Kyo as America and its people, we should continue setting an example to welcome and support each other despite our differences. My hope is to see more people of color and those in the LGBTQ+ community striving for their dreams without limitation, especially among youth. What is it today, right now, instead of tomorrow or next week or next month? What is it that we can help society see a better side for the youth, that they don't have to struggle what I have to struggle? What is it that we can empower ourselves, our own creativity? Why are we scared to do stuff that we want to make us happy? Do it now, but do it with courage and conviction, and do it with pride and love, so that we can feel that light and encouragement. To this day, it's my first time being in public in an art gallery. This is my dream. I'm living my dream as an artist. This is my practice. Thank you so much.
That's what this is about. Thank you, man. Thank you. Our next speaker is Miguel Morales. Miguel grew up in Texas. No, go ahead. Miguel grew up in Texas, working as a migrant seasonal farm worker. He's a Lambda Literary Fellow and an alum of Bona Voices, and of the Macondo Writers Workshop. Miguel is co-editor of Pulse, Pulso, and Remembrance of Orlando and Fat and Queer, an anthology of queer and trans bodies and lives. Miguel Morales.
this was my first time being in public before the pandemic. I did readings all the time, and so I'm a little nervous to be here. And so I thought, I brought some poems, but then I was at work and I thought I wanted to kind of just explore the nervousness I have about being an artist again, coming out into the world where there's another pandemic going on. So I grew up, came of age during the 1980s when AIDS first hit. I was young, I was about 14 years old. And I met a lot of really great people who we've lost because of that pandemic. And I survived, and some of my friends survived. And I know we never thought that we would be in this place again where, a disease could take us out. And the people who survived HIV are also now the people who are most vulnerable in this pandemic because they're older, they have compromised immune systems. So this pandemic is really hitting the queer community hard because we still haven't recovered from HIV. So I just thought I would give some advice from an old guy who survived the pandemic to people who, this might be new to you. Number one, bury your dead. You need time to grieve the loss and how that loss will extend into the future and how your reality has shifted because a vital voice has gone from your world, or the presence has gone from this world. We're going to feel that shift for years. Our civilization has changed its trajectory because of this virus. And just with AIDS, as AIDS wiped out an entire generation of people who would have led the queer community, who would have taught us how to grow old and to be comfortable in our aging bodies, we're having to learn that all over. We're never going to know the loss that we have until we experience it and find that we've lost a lot of really good leaders who would have made the world better for us. So it's going to be an uncomfortable situation for a long time, and you're going to grieve for a long time and just randomly at different times, so that's okay. It's okay to do that. Don't be afraid of your anger. ACT UP taught me that anger is a tool, and like a hammer, it can build a house or it can tear one down, and sometimes you have to do both. But when you separate your ego from anger, then it becomes malleable. And you can channel it into a cause, which I did with AIDS activism. And when you do that, you're able to take that wounded love, because anger is really just wounded love. When you can take that anger and channel it into something, that love that pains you, it finds a way to heal, and it becomes love again. You'll still be angry, but you'll be angry with a purpose, and you'll be angry with love. So it's better to not let anger control you and rule you, but find a way to control it and harness it and use it as a source of energy. So don't be afraid of your anger. Respect and hear your fear. Like with anger, you cannot let fear rule your life. And that's what I'm trying to do right now, because it's very fearful to be in a place without a mask in front of people. I haven't been in a public space in a long time, so just trying to sit calm and breathe. Breathing for me is like the anchor. It tethers me to reality, because otherwise I can spin out. So sometimes when you're in a position where your fear is just really caution, saying, hey, you're not paying attention, I'm putting on the sirens in the red light. So you've got to breathe through your fear and let it wash over you so you can de-escalate that. Now if you're in a place of fear because of safety, and you don't want to sit in that space when you're in physically danger, you just want to get the hell out of there. But you know your levels of fear, and you know what caution is like, and when you're kind of getting ready to spin out, just kind of take a breath and let that become part of your being, and turn that fear into some courage if you can. Let's see, the next thing I have, helping helps. Ask for help, because you will need help. And when people notice that you need help and they offer it, accept it. Asking for help is not a weakness, it's a strength. It means you know your limitations, it means you know what you can do, and it means you You can recognize in another person that they have an ability that you don't, and you can share this energy exchange. And as you discovered in a pandemic, everybody needs help. You no doubtly offered help to other people, and when you're doing that, you don't think, oh God, this person is so pathetic. They're a failure of a human being. You're thinking, this person needs help, and I don't have much, but I can do something to help them. So when you're in that position, when you need help, don't let that negative self-talk think, oh, I don't want to ask for help because I'm too weak, or they'll think I'm pathetic, or I don't know what I'm doing. They're thinking, I have the opportunity to help somebody and I want to take it. So kind of just let that wash over you and let go of that fear of asking for help. Because like I said, in the pandemic, everybody needs help. Number 5, make room and pull up. If you're a leader or you have experience to offer, but you don't feel like I don't want you to feel like you have to do it all and take it all on, be the leader of a movement or, an effort. What I learned during the AIDS crisis is I was surrounded by a lot of brilliant people who knew a lot more about the issues and about activism than I did. I learned through them and by watching them. And unfortunately, in a pandemic, people get sick, and leaders have to step aside for treatment or for health concerns. And sometimes they will hand over a task to a newbie, and sometimes, sometimes they die. And the best way to honor their memory and to continue that fight is to pick up that task and finish it and move on. And you're gonna fuck up, because I fucked up a lot. But even in that failure, you can learn, you can pull a lesson from that. And that's really all that we're here to do, is to learn a lesson and share it with others and keep each other alive. So whether gaps are created intentionally or by circumstance, if there's an ability for you to step up and take on a task, do it. Because when you do, not only are you filling a space for someone who had to step aside, you're creating a space so that someone can step into your space. And that's how leadership flows. You gotta let the experience and the knowledge flow. You wanna be the river, you don't wanna be a rock, right? So don't be afraid. I mean, I know it's scary, you think, I don't wanna take on this task. I'm a supporter, I'm not a front-facing person. Find what's comfortable for you and push it just a little bit further. And if you don't feel like you can do that, then just remember that, you need to respect and hear your fear. There's help in helping. Don't be afraid of your anger. Bury your dead, make room and pull up. This series, I was thinking about this series is called Tangled Roots, and that's really what we are. We're just all tangled in each other's lives. Even with the pandemic, when we were 6 feet away and wearing 2 masks, you realize that we are all connected. And even people like me who like to be alone and like the isolation of it, I realized that I miss so many people. I miss being in the presence of other creative people. And my art needs to be around people who are having conversations, and I can hear them, and I file something away. And then I'm experiencing with my friends, and we're having a good time, and I see a look, and I file that away. And then over time, it kind of cooks in my head a little bit, and then it becomes a poetry piece or a story or a presentation. And I really miss that interaction. And so I'm going to try and push myself to be more involved and walk through my fear of being in public spaces where masking is concerned and with the virus, because during the AIDS crisis, when that seemed to be over, even though it's not really over, when there was a respite, I put that behind me, because thinking of all the people that I lost really devastated me, and it took away a future, because I was just so wrapped up in the loss that I pushed that aside. And this pandemic has brought all those things back to me, and I think I did a disservice by burying that past, because those were my friends, and I hid them away when they should have been part of my life. And so now, every breath that I take is a breath for them and with them. And even though it's scary to take a breath today, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it for them, and I'm going to do it for everybody else who cannot breathe.
Amen.
Thank you.
Miguel, thank you for taking a risk tonight and for being vulnerable with us. Our next speaker is Philip Hooser. Philip Blue L. Hooser is a Native American actor, writer, and storyteller with more than 30 plays and screenplays produced, including the recent Tartufenthorpe.
Yes!
Exclamation point. His storytelling has been a part of events in the area, as well as being featured in the documentary Outright and The Risk, another exclamation point, podcast. He's most recently been on stage as Arnold in Tort Song Trilogy, The Aged Tom Sawyer in Regard to Flight, Truman Capote in the one-man show True, and he originated the role of Tom Pendergast in the new musical Truman and Pendergast. He also hosts a live reading event called Eat Their Words at Prospero's Books and on local cinema screens, reminding you to turn off your phone. Philip Hooser.
And mostly I'm just thinking, don't fall, don't fall, don't fall. I have for you a traditional Native American story about coyote. It may not always feel traditional, and it's a comfortable story, although it may not always feel very comforting. So, pardon me, Amona, which is the traditional way of beginning stories, basically means in the beginning or once upon a time, sort of different cultural take. Coyote was out looking for food. Now, in case you're not familiar with the character of Coyote, he is also, and particularly you should know for this story, he is known as he who imitates, or he who copies, or because these things are occasionally updated, he who Xeroxes, and he who only retweets. So Coyote was looking for food, and as he's going along, he happens to see this rabbit. And he thinks to himself, look, breakfast. And so he starts sneaking up on the rabbit, but he soon realizes that this rabbit is a medicine person who is able to do some form of magic. Because as he watches, Rabbit goes with the medicine called ah-ah-ho! And when he does, Rabbit's eyes fly out of his head and they land on a tree branch. And they just sit there staring. No eyelids. Can't blink. And Coyote thinks this is the greatest thing prior to sliced bread. So he watches, and as he watches, Rabbit then goes, "Hey, come back here!" And his eyes come back, and they fall plop, right back into his head. And Coyote forgets all about eating at this point. He's like, I gotta know how to do this trick. So he runs up to Rabbit and says, show me how to do the trick, show me how to do the trick, I want to know how to do the trick, please show me how to do the trick. And Rabbit says, no. And Coyote says, no, you gotta show me how to do the trick, I really want to know how to do the trick, show me how to do the trick, I want to do the trick. And Rabbit again says, no. But Coyote says, look, I changed my mind about breakfast, but I could go back to wanting to eat you. And Rabbit goes, okay, listen. I will show you how to do this thing, Coyote, but I know how you are. And you can do it no more than 4 times in a single day or something terrible will happen. And Coyote says, yeah, whatever, I just want to know how to trick, show me how to trick, I want to know how to do the trick. So Rabbit goes, okay, first of all you do the medicine call. And he goes, yeah. And Coyote does that, and when he does, his eyes fly out of his head and they go land on a tree branch. And Coyote is like, this is great. And Rabbit says, and to get them back, you go, Quinn, come back here. And Coyote goes, right. Quinn, come back here. And Coyote's eyes come back, and they fall plop right into his head. And Rabbit says, okay, remember, Coyote, no more than 4 times in a single day. And Coyote goes, yeah, whatever. And Rabbit goes off to be in another story. And Coyote stays there and thinks, I must practice this thing. And so he goes, yeah, and his eyes fly out, and William, come back here, and his eyes come back and pop right back into his head, and yeah, he tries to throwing them under his leg, and they fly out of and under his leg and up and over on the tree branch. They sit there, and William, come back here, plop, and yeah, and they fly off again, and William, come back here, and then they plop right back into his head, and he thinks, wait a second. Why are we doing this here where no one can see me? No one can appreciate how clever I am and feed me. You know, there's nobody with an Oscar ballot for him. So he thinks, I gotta go to the nearest village. So he goes to the nearest village. And he gathers all the people around and says, hey, everybody, come look at what I can do. Look at this. And when all the native people are gathered around, he goes, yeah, and his eyes fly out of his head. And they land on top of a teepee at this point, because there's not a tree around. And they're sitting there, and the native people are incredibly impressed. Like, that is so cool, totally. And Kenny goes, you ain't seen nothing yet. And he says, William, come back here. And nothing happens. So he's already done it 4 times, and this is the 5th time that he's doing it. And he goes, William, come back here. Hey, eyes, come back here. And still, nothing happens. And Native American people, in case you're not familiar, are some of the most ironic people you'll ever meet. So they're like, okay, it's a good situation, good job, Coyote, sure, whatever. And they go back to whatever they were doing before, playing Nintendo or something. And he goes, no, wait, eyes, come back here. William, come back here. And then he hears this sound. Oh, no, it's a crow. Come on, eyes, hurry up, come back to me. And the crow swoops down and eats Coyote's eyes. It was hungry too. And it was having brunch, which is perfectly appropriate. Because Coyote actually can change gender, which is unusual. But because of that, Coyote is a symbol for queer Native American people, or sometimes we're known as two-spirits. Because he can become male, he can become female. However, his pronouns are usually me, mine. So, now Coyote doesn't have his eyes, he's blind. And is forced to crawl and feel his way around. And as he goes, Coyote is not one who suffers in silence very well. And so he's crawling, he goes, Okay, here we have a problem. Because what he's saying is actually a pun. And one thing you learn in translations, the puns do not really go well from one language to another. But when you say, at the right powwow, big laugh line. I'll forgive you. So he's crawling around, and he's not able to find anything. He's like, what am I going to do for eyes? And he thinks, I know what I'll do. I will call on my 2 sisters. Coyote has 2 sisters who are huckleberries. That's not the weird part. Because we're all related, right? Everything on the planet, we're all our relations. But his sisters live in his stomach. Because it was difficult, they had student loans, couldn't really find a place to live that was affordable. You know, they say it's affordable rent, but even with the tips, they couldn't get it. It was a whole big problem. So they live in Coyote's stomach. So he calls on his sisters. And when they do, they are, as usual with them, and talking to Coyote, they're a little upset with him. They go, what is it, Coyote? You're always calling on us when you don't know what to do. And then when we tell you what to do, you say, oh, I knew it all along. That's what I was going to do anyway. Well, we're not going to help you, Coyote. And Coyote says, look, you 2, I am going to call down thunder and hail. And they're like, no, hail, we hate it, it hurts our little branches. Thunder gives me a migraine. What are we going to do? Okay, listen, Coyote, we'll tell you what to do. You need to find some daisies. Now, what they were talking about was a particular type of daisy that even to this day is known as coyote's eyes. And they said, you find those daisies and you put them in and you will be able to see. And with that, they, go back into Coyote's stomach because they're binge watching Gilmore Girls for the ninth time. And Coyote says, I knew it all along. That's what I was going to do anyway. And he feels a little rumble in his stomach, and he's like, it's okay, they're gone anyway. So he goes and he's able to crawl around. And he crawls all day trying to find these Coyote's eyes daisies. He finally finds them. And he puts them in. And now Coyote's able to see again. And he thinks the world is so full of rich color, such a beautiful sunset that's happening with all the colors. And then he thinks, wait, why is it getting dark so quickly? That's because Coyote's eyes daisies, like many flowers do, fold up as night approaches. And Coyote was like, they tried to trick me! And he rips out the flowers, he stomps on them on the prairie, and he says, they tricked me, but I'm not gonna fall for it. But now, of course, Coyote is blind again. He crawls along saying, no, don't even. No. I know it's funny. And he's crawling and he says, well, there's nothing I can do now. I'm tired, I'm hungry, it's been all day, I'll just sleep. So he sleeps overnight. And then when he wakes up, he thinks about it, he goes, having flower eyes is better than having no eyes at all. So again, he has to crawl around. He finally finds the Coyote's eyes and puts them in. He says, I'm not going through this every day. So he happens to spy a woman who is off to the side here on the prairie, and she is picking berries. And she's putting them into a burden basket, what's called a burden basket that's on her back, so she's able to carry the berries along like that. And she's picking these berries. And Coyote thinks, I need a clever plan. And so he thinks of something, he starts running toward her, going, catch that pheasant, you gotta catch that pheasant! And she's looking at him, what pheasant? What? Where? And he says, the one that's behind that tree. There's a pheasant behind the tree, it's a very open area of the prairie. And she doesn't see any trees. She goes, what tree? He says, the one that's behind that mountain. And it just flew away. And she's like, wait a second. You can see a pheasant that's behind a tree that's on the other side of a mountain? How can you do this amazing thing? And he says, oh, with my magic flower eyes. And she goes, magic flower eyes? He says, yeah. She says, I must have a pair of eyes like that. I must know how to get some magic flower eyes. He says, you must? She says, yes, if they can see everything. And Coyote says, yeah, I can even see, I can see what your husband's doing over there while you're over here working so hard. And she says, you gotta give me some eyes like that. And Coyote says, well, I might be willing to trade my ordinary eyes for your eyes. Now, what had happened before this was that Coyote had also been talking, he had come across a mouse on the prairie. And he had seen the mouse, and he thought, well, he hadn't seen the mouse because he couldn't see. But the mouse had seen him and said, Coyote, what are you doing screaming around? I'm not on the prairie like this. And Coyote says, can't you see I got no eyes? I can't see. And the mouse says, look, if it will help you out, I will give you one of my eyes. And so Mouse goes, don't, pulls out one of his little tiny eyes and gives it to Coyote, who puts it, unfortunately, a mouse would fit in the palm of my hand. Coyote's about the size of a German Shepherd. So when he puts this eye into his eye socket, it just kind of rolls around like a baby because it's so tiny. And it hardly lets any light at all. So Coyote still, he's not able to see. He says, Mouse, where are you? I can't see with this thing. But Mouse has crawled off. And then he's suffering again. It is shy. I'm not even going to do the punchline. And he's hurt by this buffalo who says, Coyote, what you doing screaming around like that for? And Coyote says, all I get to see with is this little mouse eye. And how'd you let somebody light? I can't even see it all. Get ahead of it. And Buffalo says, look, if it will help you, I'll give you one of my eyes. Now, Coyote about the size of a German Shepherd. Buffalo about the size of a minivan. So when Buffalo takes out his eye and gives it to Coyote, Coyote tries to stuff it in, but half of it's still hanging out on his cheek. You know, he's got one little tiny eye, and he's got this other big mismatched eye, and he still can't see it. He's still got the headache. He's like, I can't deal with this. So Coyote is now so relieved that he's been able to trick this woman, and he's going to trade her eyes. Because he's not going to have to go through that either, and he won't have to find more flower eyes all the time. And so he pulls out his flower eyes and hands it to the woman, and she pulls out her eyes and gives them to Coyote. And he says, oh, it's such a relief to be able to see again. And she says, yes. Oh, look, that sunset is so beautiful. Look at all the colors. But it's getting dark so fast. And Coyote says, I know. And she realizes the flowers are folding up and she won't be able to see. So she pulls them up and she tramples them on the prairie like Coyote had done. And she says, give me back my eyes. And Coyote says, no. You didn't want your eyes, so you will have no eyes at all. And as Coyote did this, he began drumming. And the woman started to shrink. And Coyote says, you didn't want your eyes, you will have no eyes at all, and you will have to crawl and feel your way around the way that I did, and the basket on her back becomes this hard shell that she would have to carry around, and her children and her children's children would have to do this, and she continues to shrink the entire time. And she's shrinking and going down until she becomes very tiny, and she becomes the person we know as Younis, or snail. And a taha. And a taha means that the story is over, but I wanted to share with you why I wanted to share this story with you. And that's because of the medicine that this story contains. You know, in the Western world, we think of medicine as something that kills an infection in order to restore your health. And in the Native American way of thinking, medicine is anything that reminds you that you have health and can bring you back to it. When war parties or hunting parties would go out away from the community, they would come back, and then there would be stories and dances and songs that were to remind people that they belonged to this community. And that was the idea of the medicine that's in those stories and in those songs. And there is medicine in this story, like the rabbit. It's able to work some kind of magic. That's what this story is about, something that is special in each of us. Because we all have our own unique and wonderful way of understanding the world. And in this story, that's shown as being through your eyes. Because your eyes are special, and they are unique, and they are social, and they are sexual, and they are ethnic, and they are cultural, and they are everything that you experience. Those are your eyes. For lack of a better way of putting it, your eyes are no one else's eyes. You have a unique and wonderful way of understanding the world. And there are some people, certainly among us tonight, but among us all the time, who are able to look at the world and see it in this unique and special way. And then they are able to share it with us, whether it be in a visual art, a painting, or a sculpture, or in a song, or a dance, or a building, a film, in a poem, in a play, or in a story. And we call those people artists, because they are able to share what they see. We're all able to do that. But artists spend time thinking, how can I share my understanding, my vision of the world with other people? And that's what happens in this story. The mouse and the buffalo, they share their vision, their special understanding of the world, but they don't give it all away. And the snail woman is punished because she's so willing to give up what is unique and special about her by giving up her eyes. Instead, she will now only be able to see the world through other people's vision. She will follow them blindly. She might think that she's done her own research, there's a coyote in the story, not a fox. And she will not be able to share that vision because now she has no eyes, because she gave them away. And the Taha, the story is over.
That was great. That's part of why I wanted to do a storytelling event, because it makes me feel like a kid again. Just for someone to get up and just kind of transport you that way. So we come to our last speaker,
who couldn't be here with us tonight, but she did record something for us. So I'll read a little bit about her and then get that set up. Natasha Ria El-scari is a poet, performer, writer, Cave Canem alum, Ragdale residency recipient, and educator for over a decade. Her poetry, academic papers, and personal essays have been published in anthologies, literary, and online journals. She has opened for and introduced many great writers, singers, and activists, and has been featured at a host of universities and venues nationwide. Born and raised in Kansas City, Missouri, Natasha has a BA from Jackson State University and an MA from the University of Missouri, Kansas City. Natasha's Black feminist approach is reflected in her writing, poetry, and performance pieces. Once asked in an interview what makes her unique, she replied, "Most people lie to themselves, but I like to reveal myself." I'm gonna pull her up just a second.
Good afternoon, everyone. I wish that I could be there in person, but I have another event that I have to be at that I've already committed to at exactly the same time. So I want to thank the Interurban Art House for allowing me to create this video just for this occasion of the Tangled Roots, which is always one of my favorite exhibitions. So I just appreciate the work of the Interurban Art House, and I am so glad that I get to be a part of the Tangled Roots exhibit. When I think about my identity and what it means in this country, there are so many different intersectionalities that I think are such a huge part of my identity. As a woman, as a Black person, as a large person, as someone who is not a Christian, as someone who is sex positive, as someone who is an ally, and that all of these things that kind of like make up who I am have always been a little different from what has been before me, or even what is a huge part of culture. I have such a deep love and affection towards what it means to be African American or Black or African in America, however you name it. I am deeply tied to the diaspora, and I am deeply tied to what it means to be of African descent and what it means to be African American. And I'm just so proud to be that. And so first and foremost, I recognize that I am, yes, in the human flesh, but I am also a spiritual being. And I wrote this poem for when people have said to me, Natasha, like, what are you? Who are you? And first and foremost, I think that as we all fight for justice and we fight for freedom and we make that a lifelong journey, that it is because we want to be recognized fully and be accepted as who we are as human beings. Citizen of the world, you ask me what I believe. I am a citizen of the world. Siesta every Thursday from 12 to 3. Pray 5 times a day quite religiously because it feels the need in me. Flip the tarot cards. Follow the signs of a void of course moon to make decisions about what business deal to do. I am a citizen of the world. I feed my children with fish and bread loaves. Abraham and Israel. I recall the lessons of Khadijah. I chant that Rastafarian belief that Selassie I was king, taking the ganja when I breathe. I am a citizen of the world. The homie Amazon warrior, slice breast on the right side to make the perfect aim in case I have to send you a warning shot to back off my uterus and ovaries. I am a citizen of the world. Ask me what I believe and I will tell you that there is something sacred about the blood and body of Christ. Ask me what I believe and I will tell you that as I bow in namaste, that meditation is what leads me. So yes, I do believe there was a Jesus Christ. And yes, I do believe in Abraham. And yes, I do believe in Allah. And yes, I do hear the moon chant praises to me. And yes, I am a feminist. And yes, I am a Buddhist. And yes, I am a straight ally. And yes, I don't have no need to lie. I read tarot cards and astrology compatibility manuals to figure out my daughter's mood today. They do not contradict, only assist me on this sacred journey. I am a citizen of the world. And if you are too narrow to see that our infinite source called all these fantastic names would only make one path, well, you can borrow my indigo children's glasses because you lack vision, and that is okay too, because just like the smallest vein, it still gets a little information to you. I am a citizen of Mother Earth, and there is just something right about praying over something before you kill it or eat it or use every square inch of it to live. I was a vegetarian for 15 years. Now I eat chicken and fish, and that cow is still sacred, but please pass the cheese. No pork, no gelatin. Hold the chitlins next to my greens. Either way, I pray over it. Give thanks for the last breath so my flesh keeps going on and breathing. Hell, one day I might be vegan. I am a citizen of the world. In me, there are no walls. There is no building, no synagogue, no mosque, nor outside pagan ritual or festival that can control or confine me. I am heathen and saint. I drumbeat, I dream catcher the spells, evil spells, and cast them with a pendulum that vibrates to balance my chakras, all the while believing there is no adversary to the Most High. I try not to lie when you ask me, how are you today? I cleanse my space with sage and lavender and lay my hands over my children's crown chakras while I say to them, you are African. So they will have another amazing day. I am a citizen of the world. I just believe that my way is my way and that your way is the right way. Mine not any more right or less sacred than yours. And that goes for same-sex marriage too. Love is love. God is love. I am love. We are love. I take the pieces that make all the pieces of me to create peace all around me. I am fraction upon fraction upon fraction of broken culture, oppression, and compromise, yet I am still whole. We can all do our part without judgment and war antics. I am a citizen of the world. Make no mistake or confusion. These hips, these lips, the drum beats that live in my nappy hair and move me at night are African, but thrusted into this nation's existence has made me somewhat of a hybrid. So I combine electric and gas to ignite the healing in this life. I know and do believe that the me there is made up of many things, so I can keep my grandmother's hymns and my grandfather's blues, my mother's commitment and my sister's command of the dance floor. I can be all of that and more and more and more, unfolding again and again on this one and any other dimension. You will need to change the shape and color of that box if you plan to put me in it. Make room for my prayer feathers and body piercings. They go with me because I believe in tantric pleasure. See, that's God moving all through me. And you can have some of this too, baby. Some of this beautifulness too, baby. Come here. Did I mention that I love you? And like my late sister said, baby, you gotta do you. So my heart is full and is all the passport I need to claim universal citizenship and infinite expressions to the Most High, Mama Earth, Holy Spirit. I am, and so it is, and so are you, a citizen of the world. Ashe. That poem is from Screaming Times. And I think what is so powerful to me is that sometimes I have poems that are written and I feel like we haven't moved, like some things still feel the same and they feel stuck. And that part is hard. But this poem, it brings me joy, because in the joy, what I see is that we actually are moving to understanding and accepting multiple identities. So that gives me hope. I feel like as an African-American woman, we have always been the greatest humanists on the planet. I don't know why we don't ever get those Nobel Peace Prizes, because it is the love and the acceptance of people that I learned from Black women. And if they didn't approve, they did not get rid of somebody. If they chastised, they still loved. And so this idea of canceling, this idea that we deserve to be kicked off the island, to me, is a very Eurocentric idea. I have watched when the crack epidemic hit families and communities within the African-American culture, people still loved people through them stealing from them, through the hardship, not taking care of their children. They loved anyway, through their trauma. And so I just think, I want to say how incredibly proud I am. And this is the thing about Black women. It's not that we are even taught that we are better than, but we are taught that we are better because we try to love everyone, that you become better and that you become stronger when you make an attempt to love people as they are. And that is one of the most sacred things around what it means to be Black and woman and in this country, to come from a people that were brought here to die. We were not brought here to live. And so I am forever grateful and forever proud to be in the long line of Black women and to say yes to humanity and to say yes to acceptance and still hold people accountable. So just want to give thanks to my ancestors, and thank you, Tangled Roots, for this opportunity.
Everybody feel free to walk around and get a little bit more wine to the exhibition before you go if you like. Take your time.